Anime Death Spiral, the only anime podcast with 100% objectively correct opinions, and we are finally coming at you with our summer 2023 season premieres. We're right on time.
Listen,
I know you've been waiting.
It is the hottest summer in world history for anime.
Damn, it's hot anime summer. I know you chose to wait 4 weeks before watching anything just to check with us first. I appreciate that. I appreciate the trust you put in me.
I mean, we know that you're waiting for our opinions on bated breath.
Yes, and it's a good thing you did because you know what? There's some complicated premieres this season. But as always, first I want to talk a little bit about the disgusting amount of manga I've read in the last week or so since we've talked.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You've gone back to the manga.
I have.
The paper monkey is on your back again. What have you been reading?
I've been reading all kinds of shit. Yet again, pretty much randomly chose most of these things, so there's not really too much rhyme or reason. I did choose two in particular.
Okay, before you get into it, just let me ask you real quick. I know you said you don't have any rhyme or reason, but like, how do you pick then? Do you just scroll until you see a cover that like interests you? What is your deciding factor?
Sometimes I do that. Sometimes it's just a title. I'm seeing lists and lists of titles. I see a title that sounds kind of interesting. That's a hard one because a lot of them are Japanese only. I don't know what those crazy words mean. I don't recognize them. They're not in English.
What are these moon runes?
I don't know what they say. I really don't. I have to guess most of the time. So sometimes I go off the thumbnail. Sometimes I, after a big binge, a scoop, I will pick out my absolute favorites and I will go and find the artist and I'll see what else they've done. That's probably the most intentional I ever get.
Yes, the hentai artist method.
Hey, don't preempt me here, okay?
Have you ever looked up a title that you thought sounded interesting and the art like completely turned you off?
No, and I have talked about this with some friends before. There is, this is a balance, and maybe we could talk about this because I ask people a lot, like, what do you prefer? A really good story with bad art or a bad story with really good art? And I am tolerant pretty much of both. I prefer a bad story with really good art, but if there's a really good story, I can totally tolerate bad art. So I'm really open to it. But I know some people that cannot tolerate bad art. Well, and they will bounce out of anything that doesn't look good.
Yeah, you kind of have, like, I'm thinking of extremes on both ends there, and the original One Punch Man webcomic comes to mind, because that is, like, an objectively fun story with very bad art, which was kind of like the joke for a long time, right?
Yeah, but that's kind of unique, because I do think One's art in the webcomic is, like, it's charmingly bad. I think it's really cute how bad it is.
Well, I was not commenting on its charm. It is absolutely adorable in every sense. And you can tell like his personal story is that he just decided that he wanted to do a manga, and his art from start to finish to what we're seeing today is the evolution of him, like, deciding, like, I want to do a manga. I don't know how to draw. I'm starting at ground zero. And it went from the weird little webcomic doodles to, like, the art in later parts of the original Mob Psycho that he did, like, honestly look pretty decent.
I think he really found his voice, but then again, like I said, I think going back, I've read the webcomic from panel 1, and I think even panel 1 has this just DIY charm to it that a lot of bad webcomics do not. Like, some of them are just bad, yes. And I don't think his was bad. I think it had something to it, and I think that's why it caught on to begin with, not just because it was funny. And it is funny. He was funny from day one.
Well, he's a funny guy. Like,
yeah.
That is part of the charm, right?
Yes.
Okay, we got a little off topic.
It's a difficult it's difficult, right? It's a difficult thing because some people like think something I would say is objectively beautiful is ugly. Like that happens. Mm-hmm. So it becomes very difficult. Some people can't stand 80s art. They just cannot stand it. And I am sympathetic to that, but it's not a problem for me. So I just dive in, no matter what.
I would say for me that good art absolutely makes a bad story much more tolerable than good writing makes really lackluster art for me. And what I'm personally have experience with is, for the most part, the good writers, like the really good writers, don't have a problem finding good artists who want to work with them.
Sure. I think that there's a lot of times where the artist author, should we just call that the mangaka?
Yeah, the mangaka model is there's a singular driving creative force behind the title usually, and
it's so weebish.
The mangaka sensei.
The mangaka sensei. Yeah. I find a lot, since I read some kind of occasionally some more obscure stuff, not all the time. I'm not saying I'm like a real fucking deep diver or whatever, but some of the more obscure stuff in like short story collections with mangaka, there is definitely a much rougher take on the art, and it is much more focused on the utilitarian needs of the narrative. The thing that really kills me isn't either one of those. It's when I get into a story that has like good art or whatever, and maybe even an interesting narrative, and the politics are so bad. That will kill it.
Hey, hold on. We're already going to talk about Zom 100 later.
Yes, we'll get to that. I mean, yeah, that's a nice primer for that.
Yeah.
So have you on the hook for that. You know what? And there's a couple in here too. I want to talk about some of the ones I've read. Okay, so in those decision-making processes, I stumbled on two that actually fall weirdly in the middle of the spectrum, because I read Dorei Yugi and Bloody Junkie, and these are two death games.
Okay.
No bones about it. These are some death games. Not even really toeing the line.
Well, that's right up your alley. You love a good death game.
I will search out death games. Obviously, I've talked about this to death already. But yes, death game. That's worth a search. So I came to Dorei Yugi and Bloody Junkie that way. Dorei Yugi has some very strange politics. Dorei Yugi is about, and man, if there wasn't a more blunt sledgehammer-like metaphorization of societal ills, but Dorei Yugi is about it's a secret society of upper-class rich people who have created underground gladiator slave pits and just snatch people off the street and turn them into slaves to battle, almost Pokemon style, in gladiator fights underground.
I mean, it seems a bit on the nose, if you're asking me.
It does seem a bit on the nose, yes. And now, when I say Pokemon style, that's not just like throwing it out there. The impetus for our main character becoming involved in the slave games is that somebody sends him, and kids do not do this, somebody sends him a text message with a link to a mobile game, and he just fucking goes, yep, downloading that. And the game is called Slave Go.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Hoo boy. And the point of the game is you hold up your phone to a person, and then you drag and drop various items like duct tape, rope, cage onto the person, and it captures the person, and that person becomes a slave. Now, of course, our main boy, he's a virtuous boy, okay? So he doesn't know he's enslaving people at first. He comes to that later, okay? So I want to stress that. He doesn't know he's enslaving these people. But he accidentally does enslave some people, including his, like, shitty homeroom teacher. Just on a lark.
Okay, so, hold on. Is this a porn comic?
This is not a porn comic.
Because there's
some nudity in there.
of most... it's like a whole genre the slave app on your phone. Like, did you know that?
Yes. Yes. I'd love for you to tell me more about porn, but let me just finish up here, okay? Because there's some weird shit.
Just saying, I know it when I see it.
Yeah. This is the thing that divides this from that porn genre is that the comic is pretty explicitly anti-slavery. That's the draw line.
Yeah. No. Hey, me too. Hey, us too. We're totally anti-slavery.
Yeah, I thought Rising of the Shield Hero would have won you over by this point, but I guess you stood tall. You stood tall for your moral code.
Rising of the Shield Hero was so bad that it made me anti-slavery.
I was pro-slavery, and then I went full Abraham Lincoln after that fucking anime.
The anime so bad it made me an abolitionist.
Yeah, so the one notable thing I will say about Dorei Yugi, it follows a pretty standard death game trajectory that I've obviously laid out multiple times in this show, so I won't get into it. He is a virtuous boy. He doesn't take a heel turn, but for whatever reason, I have to assume he got a he got a cancellation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
Around chapter 30, 35 or whatever. And to drum up interest in a potential sequel, this is probably what he landed on. But it does end with him losing everything. He loses really, really badly. And that does not happen. I mean, a lot of death games have some pretty bleak endings, but usually they're not like full fucking like game over type lose.
Wait, and so that was the end? This is a completed work?
I believe, I have to look, but I believe there was a very short run at a sequel, but I don't know much about it. But yeah, so that is a notable thing about this series that is otherwise pretty not notable. Unnotable? Not notable? Innotable?
Unnoticeable.
Unnoticeable. It only caught my eye because of my death game obsession. The second death game is one called Bloody Junkie. And this one, again, this is a pretty standard setup. Art is perfectly serviceable, has a very simple setup. This is one of the ones where a kid gets drugged in a parking lot, wakes up in a death game.
As you do.
Absolutely the most standard setup. Yeah, I mean, this is textbook
Listen,
shit.
we've all seen Squid Game. We're all big fans of Kaiji, Ultimate Survivor.
I haven't seen Squid Game.
Shut up. Yes, you have. Don't let them know that.
That's the one I have.
It seems like a very common occurrence to just, get coerced, corralled, or kidnapped into a death game.
People are just getting like fucking ragged out.
People are talking about that Sound of Freedom movie. Why are they not talking about the death game epidemic out there instead of human trafficking?
I know, it's fucking crazy. There's way more death games than there are human trafficking rings. I mean, there's like a new one every week.
Right?
Bloody Junkie is a new one. And what's notable about Bloody Junkie, our main virtuous boy, and I will say, very simple setup. Both of these kids are orphans. Their parents are dead. So
they're already primed to be good protagonists.
Exactly. This is very standard death game setup because then there's nobody looking for you, right?
Yeah. No, listen, the last thing you want is parents hanging around in your story about a kid. That's just writing 101.
It's very rare for parents to be around. I mean, I know we talked recently about the parental thing, but parents are almost completely absent from every death game. It's pretty incredible.
I mean, parents are just kind of absent from anime in general.
Yeah,
it's always like, oh yeah, my parents are always at work in another city, so they just let me live in this mansion with all these beautiful women for free.
Yeah, which is child abuse.
Straight up, it is neglect.
It's having
a negative effect on their child's life.
I can't stress it enough. That doesn't make your kid happier. Okay, and I'm talking directly to you, anime parents.
Yeah,
I know you're listening to this. So, Bloody Junkie, the twist here, it's not even particularly an interesting setup. It's a battle royale style.
Love it.
death game.
Love a good BR.
Yeah, the characters wake up in the arena. They each start in their own cell, and then
Do they each get a
have,
random weapon, or is that too much? Like,
No, they each get a random weapon.
yes.
Turns out, actually, there's this really, like, weird gender breakdown here where women often get better weapons because they're women, so that's a thing. I'm just mentioning it because that's a weird thing that they say.
Listen, they're shooting for equity, not just equality.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't really know what to make of that. They just kind of drop it in. The interesting thing about Bloody Junkie, the one notable thing, is that all the characters wake up with basically like one iPod glued into their ear. And in the iPod, earpod? Earpod. One earpod glued in their ear.
iPod ear. Come on, it's right there.
ePod. I don't use those fucking Bluetooth shit.
Wait, hold on. Why do they have an iPod in their ear?
That's what I'm saying. This is the one interesting element. Because babbling incessantly throughout the comic into the earpods are the Twitch viewers. They basically have Twitch chat running constantly directly into their skull.
Wow. That's my nightmare. That sounds awful.
It is awful. And the Twitch viewers are awful, and their commentary is, like, really bad. But obviously on purpose. They're death game watchers. Now, it is posited that maybe they don't really understand that it's real. Like, they think it's a scripted thing.
Yeah,
but it is real. And they are watching it, and they are laughing as, like, teen girls are stabbed to death.
That reminds me of a show. I cannot remember the title right now, so this is not going to be helpful. But the premise was interesting. It's a death game where the main character is your standard, like, dweeby, a social kid in the class with no confidence. Except that he is, like, hyper-obsessive good at this particular video game that the real-world death game that they're playing is based off of. And so occasionally he'll go into, like, a super gamer fugue state and be awesome at killing everybody, and then come out of it and be like, oh, why is everybody dead around me?
This is so many death games. I don't even know where to start to narrow it down. I mean, is this Batum? That's the Xbox 360 one.
It is Batum. Thank you.
It's Batum.
Yes.
Wow, I can't believe I nailed it
You
right
got
off
it on
of
the
that
first
with
try.
such little information. Damn, I'm good at this.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bloody Junkie got canceled very early on. So they're introducing a concept where the Twitch viewers would, like, vote stuff into the game. And I thought that was going to be a kind of a fun angle. But it was so standard, it obviously got canceled. So R.I.P. to Dorei Yugi and Bloody Junkie. I would have kept reading.
Well,
I would have been the only one, but whatever.
Pour one out for the real ones.
Pour one out for the death games. This week's death games, both canceled too early. Now, in the other block, my horror block, I read a couple of interesting ones. One I read is a collection of short stories. I actually read two collections of short stories, but one was a collection of 11 short stories by Takahashi Yosuke, who's someone I hadn't read before. Really interesting horror author, kind of, and had been included in the other collection I read, which is just a various horror anthologies. But, I mean, check this horror list out. It's great. Takahashi Yusuke's in here. Hino Hideshi, who did, like, Mandala of Hell. Inuki Kaneko, who I talked about a bunch, did School Zone and her own short story collections. Junji Ito's in this collection.
Hell yeah.
We've got a couple other people I'm interested in. Noroi Michiru, Osada Noto, and Amagapa Shojugun, who don't Google if you're at work. That dude draws a lot of porn. So be careful at that one. But these guys are all heavy hitters, like good shit. And so I read Nightmare Negotiator kind of on a lark. I didn't know Takahashi Yosuke very well, but it's really good. There's some really weird stories. And like a show we're going to talk about later, there is a very interesting sort of divide between their aesthetic and sort of the darkness of the stories they're telling. I think if you like horror short stories, fuck, Takahashi Yosuke is fucking killing it out here.
It's always good to have another name to fall back on for horror manga that's not Junji Ito, right?
Well, that's what I've been getting in, because I talked a bunch about Kazuo Umez before.
Yeah.
And, Kazuo Umez and Inuki Kaneko and Junji Ito.
Kazuo Umez, that was the Drifting Classroom, right?
Drifting Classroom, yeah, Cat-Eyed Boy, all those kinds of stories.
Fucking weird little Cat-Eyed Boy fucker.
Yeah. I love Cat-Eyed Boy.
That creepy little motherfucker.
Yeah, and Hino Hideshi, who did some very, very famous ones. I believe The Red Snake is the most famous one. And I put down Mandala of Hell because I really like that one. But their art style, I mean, talking about, like, ugly art styles, they have, like, a very I can only call it hostile, their art style. It is
an attack upon the viewer's eyes.
Yes, it is meant to attack you, which is great. I really like it. Anyway, I read that. I started a story called Starving Anonymous. This one's real fun.
You described this one to me as disgusting. So
yes,
I am
it is truly
eager to
foul.
find out what this is about.
Yeah, Starving Anonymous is a newer series. Great art in this one. Not actively aggressive to the reader. It's pretty nice to look at. Taking the actual stuff being drawn aside, it's nice to look at. This is a story about a world collapsing due to global warming. Let me know if that sounds familiar. Yeah, and in this horrible heating up planet, this sci-fi planet that's heating up, a couple kids,
this totally
high school
fictional
kids,
sci-fi planet.
Yeah, they get kidnapped for unclear reasons.
Oh, yeah, they're always kidnapping the kids.
I know, they're kidnapping these kids left and right. This is also, I have to say, page 1 is just a beautifully drawn chicken nuggets. I'll get into why, but I just thought that was really piqued my interest on page 1. I was like, damn, I gotta know what's going on here.
You were very enthused by those chicken nuggets. Yeah, instant attention grabber.
Why is this dude drawing people just loving the shit out of some chicken nuggets? I have to know why. I like chicken nuggets. I'll read the story. So this kid gets kidnapped, and when he wakes up, some bad things happen to him, and eventually he gets put into a big room. A big dark room. The only thing he can see in the big dark room are basically a field of morbidly obese naked people stretching out as far as the eye can see, all in a stupor, sucking liquid out of hoses that are dangling from the ceiling.
Oh, so he's in America.
Yeah, well, the first thought I had was, oh my god, this is what they think America is like. I really was. I was like, damn, holy shit, that's harsh. He spots his friend that also got kidnapped with him, and his friend had just started sucking on the hose and basically was becoming stupefied from this horrible liquid. And right before he decides to join in, he is grabbed from behind by a couple other people who are quote unquote normal. Let's say I don't we don't want to get into the whole fat phobia issues aside.
Sure.
Yeah, we can put those aside for a second. We'll say the quote unquote normal kids show up. And they're like, hey, dude, they're like fattening us up. Don't drink that liquid. It'll turn you into an American.
Oh, fuck. There's no worse fate.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I don't want that. What am I supposed to do? And they're like, okay, so
he's
what
like,
we're going to do...
Whoa, hey, I'm apolitical. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I'm proud to be Japanese. I can't change now. They're like, okay, well, don't worry about it. So what we're going to do is, oh, shit. And there's a knock at the door. They're like, get down, pretend you're drinking from the hose. He jumps down, he grabs a hose, he puts his thumb over it, he pretends he's sucking like a baby. Mm-hmm. And he desperately tries not to make eye contact with this thing that enters. But we see it. We see the thing creeping up behind him. It's like a 14-foot tall caterpillar with blade tentacles and 2 mouths, and it just starts chopping people up left and right and sucking their guts out. Very, very detailed drawings of all of this, by the way.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So we're like, this is cool. This is awesome.
Okay, well, I mean, I get what they were doing with the chicken nugget close-ups earlier.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Right?
But also, man, I really want some chicken nuggets right now.
I would love some chicken nuggets.
I would eat the fuck out of 40 chicken nuggets.
So I would say there are about 18 different jaw-dropping twists just within 10 pages of that moment alone. But I want to leave it there because, man, it goes some places. It goes some fucking places, dog.
Okay, I'm going to call this subgenre the Hansel and Gretel, right? Because I feel like there's enough now, people being kidnapped and surreptitiously
and raised
fattened up as livestock is just a thing. Because Promised Neverland, that was like the whole thing, right?
Yes, Promised Neverland is very good as well. I like Promised Neverland a lot.
I've heard some not great things about the second season, but I have not read the manga.
I never watched it. I never watched the second season, but first season, very good. Very, very good.
All right. Well, I hope you never do.
Yeah, this is also very similar to Shadow's House. It does a very similar thing as well, which is very interesting.
And that is different than Eminence in Shadow, I'm assuming.
Very, very different.
Okay.
Very different. So, yes, there are definitely these human anxieties going around right now. It is palpable in the air. I think
of the common man being fattened up as fodder for an alien upper class.
Well, a lower class of people being used as fodder for an upper class. Yes, I think that's pretty potent imagery for a lot of people right now.
I wonder why that would be on the forefront of people's minds.
Maybe people are just thinking about that a lot, especially in explicitly apocalyptic scenarios as well, I will say.
Hey, that's a good segue.
Wait, let me give you one sentence on the rest of these.
Okay, all right, get it in. Get it out of your system.
Okay. I've only got 4 more. Arata Kangatari. Kangatari. Not Karakatari. Arata Kangatari. Now this is a mid-90s. It's got the mid-90s styles. What's interesting about Arata Kangatari is it is a pre-isekai wave isekai.
Oh.
The twist here is that the guy switches places with his fantasy counterpart. So instead of being immediately a power fantasy where he forgets about the real world, he has constant anxiety about what this fantasy dude is doing with his life.
Okay,
good angle.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah, it's a good angle.
Yeah.
Princess Resurrection Nightmare. This is less of an interesting thing and more of a fun phenomenon I was thinking about. This is basically a kind of a cutesy horror mix about a group of a princess and a little undead boy and her werewolf and Dracula servants fighting various monsters week to week. What's interesting about this is after I read a bunch of it, I realized this is actually some kind of joke spin-off of another series that I had never heard of before.
Oh, that's happening a lot.
Yeah, this keeps happening to me. I think because of the randomization process that I choose things. It's just kind of a funny phenomenon. I kind of want to mention some other ones at some point that's happened, but it's funny. I read, now this is believe it or not, this is a manga that has over 400 chapters. It's called Kateikyoushi, Hitman, Reborn. At the beginning of the manga, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it. At the beginning of the manga, a regular Japanese boy is visited by a literal mafia baby. A little baby sucking a pacifier, wearing a little suit.
Wait, like
a mafioso.
Some kind of boss baby?
It is very much like a boss baby. Now, for some reason, the boss baby mafia is called, his name is literally Reborn. I don't know why. And he has decided, due to blood lineage, to make this Japanese teenager a mafia boss. He will become a mafia don. Now, I just want to note, 100 chapters later, it is full-on, like, fantasy power fiction where people are using earth elementals to battle each other, so clearly the mafia part doesn't matter.
Well, I was already primed for it to take that turn when you announced that it starts off with a talking baby who runs the mafia.
Yeah. Oh, also the talking baby is like almost an omnipotent god entity that can like create like reality altering weaponry. So that's just a thing.
Okay, so hold on. Is the baby explicitly like an Italian Casa Nostra, like Sicilian mobster?
In the beginning, yes, literally yes.
And he decides to make this Japanese teenager due to, I'm assuming, convoluted lineage reasons. Like, you get to join the mafia now?
Yes, the Japanese seem to have taken the family aspect of the mafia incredibly seriously because they trace basically 10 branches of the family down to find the last living member of this mafioso, who is this Japanese boy due to, international affairs, which is insanely stupid and once again proves the point that blood lineage, stupid and fascist, mafia shit, just stupid.
Do they not understand that the mafia is like super racist?
Yeah, no, they apparently not. They really gloss over that part. I have to say, the guy who did Hell's Paradise has a new one going, and it is also about a guy becoming a mafia don due to fucked up blood lineage shit. And I really want to just put my foot down here. That is not how it works, guys.
It's not how it works, people.
That's not how it works. Watch The Godfather. Watch it one more time. You'll pick up on the subtext. Okay, last one. Okay. This is really quick. It's a series called Ottoman. Now,
Ottoman.
They make the Ottoman joke. Okay, so don't. Yeah, you got there.
It's pronounced Ottoman.
Yeah, they get there within the first 4 pages. Okay, so chill out, dude. No, if unlike either of us, if you speak Japanese, you'll pick up immediately that it is actually a joke based on husbandman. This is a man who is such a wife guy that it gives him superpowers. That's the premise of the comic.
Okay.
He loves his wife so much, it gives him superpowers.
Hey, love a wife guy.
Yeah, and then he fights monsters or whatever. But that's it.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Yeah, so that's the haul this week. I've got a couple more I did read, but I would rather talk about them next time when I can actually sink my teeth into. All right,
okay, well, you
that's
successfully trampled over a perfectly good segue. Let's take a break now.
All right. Okay, folks, I know you're raring at the bit, chomping at the bit, raring to go. Either one, take your pick, to watch some new anime. You're sick of all the old anime. You've watched all the old anime.
Spring's old news. Winter is basically ancient history at this point. I want to know what I should be watching in the summer season, Remy.
Literally can't even remember what happened in winter. It's completely mind-wiped.
It's the Dark Ages. There are no records.
Yeah. We're living in the now, and now is new shows. And I kind of want to go, how do you want to do this? I think we should trade off, because I know you watched a bunch I didn't, and I watched a bunch you didn't.
Yeah, well, I want to start with the one that I know we have seen at least one episode each of.
Okay, let's do it.
And that is The Girl I Like Forgot Her Glasses.
Oh, well, actually, I read a couple chapters of this. I didn't watch the anime.
Okay, well, I watched the first episode of the anime, so I guess we can go from there.
Well, then tell me how the animation looks.
That's a hard one for me, because the
wow,
first
that's
thing
hard.
Well, okay, so the character models look great, and the character animation looks fine.
Okay, good.
The backgrounds, though, were not doing it for me. They were employing very heavy use of like not
CGI.
great CGI backgrounds.
That's going to be a theme
I know. It's a theme in a lot of these that we watched.
Yeah.
I generally am trying to be much more lenient on the use of CGI these days, both because I'm just coming hot off of seeing Across the Spider-Verse, which you saw a while ago. I just got around to seeing it. Amazing film, beautiful, loved it, go see it. Revolutionary for the format.
Yes, perfect.
None of that was present in any of the very cheaply stock background animations they used in the first episode of Girl I Like Forgot Her Glasses.
Right.
To the point where like there were visible aliasing marks on the shadows. Like they were fucking jagged as hell.
That is not good.
It's not great at all. Then they did not do. They did a little work trying to cover it up by doing kind of like this super, kind of like morning light washed filter and color palette over everything.
Sure.
Doing kind of like a hand swatched thing to make it less noticeable that they are just straight 3D models, but it was not doing it for me.
Was that so distracting?
It was
took
really
you out of the show?
No, it was really distracting. Because they use it even in close-up shots with the characters, where you would assume like, okay, we're getting a close-up, shot of these characters in front of their lockers, right? And it's shoulder and head in the shot,
right?
And you think it wouldn't be that much effort to just paint a static background of their lockers behind them, but they just stick them in front of the badly rendered 3D models. And it is very noticeable, especially when you're up that close. And that was not the closest shot that they did in that episode, so I do not have great hope in that regards going forward. Yeah, not great.
Well, if there's one time you do have to nail it, it is in the pilot episode.
Yeah. An absolute lack of Sakuga in this first episode. I was not wowed, so that's unfortunate. But I think that is separate from the premise, which I think is, fine enough for early high school, or are they supposed to be middle schoolers? Impossible to tell.
You tell me.
Yeah.
You tell me.
No,
I've already made my whole spiel about how I don't care. I think of it as a giant metaphor.
Yep, no, we're going to use that as the soundbite. So what, like, the basic premise is this kid, our main kid, is your basic middle school I'm not going to say antisocial, he's asocial. He has social anxiety. He is your typical, like, can't fathom talking to a girl in any capacity, let alone having physical contact with one.
Sure. Terrified.
And he has a crush on the girl he sits next to in class. And
right.
Wouldn't you know it, he finally has his opportunity to strike up a conversation with her when she forgets her glasses.
So, and he thinks he has a chance because she can't really make out his facial features.
Well, that's part of it.
He's like, this is the only opportunity I'm going to get into this.
Well, it's definitely part of it is a mask for his anxiety. It's like, all right, she can't see my face, so she can't tell how nervous I am. So,
yeah.
That's
or how ugly I am.
Well, he's not, though. He's just like, he's incredibly average.
Sure.
But the recurring humor, the joke of the series is that she cannot see without her glasses. They make that explicitly clear. She is basically blind.
It's so funny when people can't see without their glasses. Remember Jurassic Park? That was so funny.
I do remember Jurassic Park.
It was so funny when that guy forgot his glasses.
And then he got eaten by the dinosaur.
Yeah, then he got eaten by the dinosaurs. Does she get in any peril?
No.
Really?
Not in the first episode. I don't know. You've read more of the manga probably than I've seen of the anime.
She didn't fall down the stairs at even one time because she couldn't see without her glasses?
No. Most of it was like, oh, she's sharing his textbook with him in class, so she has to get up real close to him to see the words on the page because her eyesight is so bad. So
Sure.
This freaks him out, obviously, because he's a little loser wimp who can't like be within 5 feet of a woman without freaking out. Which I guess is relatable, for a teenage boy. I don't want to seem heartless.
Sounds like a skill issue.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the first episode. They kind of do a joke at the end where he thinks that she comes to school again without her glasses, and so he's acting much more confident than he usually would. And then at the end, she reveals that she has switched over to contacts for the day.
Right. And you'd think that would pretty much put the entire show to rest.
Yeah,
right?
no, she got contacts. Like, she can see now.
Yeah, what's the conflict after that? They really kind of burned through their entire premise there.
I'm confident, actually, in just kind of leaving it at the one episode because they told a complete story.
Yeah, I mean, do you really need to see them get together? It kind of seems like you got everything you needed out of it.
Yeah, no, I got in. They gave me exactly what I wanted, and called it a day. Good job, guys. 10 out of 10.
Great. I love it. I love it when you don't have to watch any more than one episode.
Yeah.
It's a time saver.
What were your thoughts on the manga chapters that you read?
It was in such a flurry of other kind of trashy rom-coms that it really didn't make much of an impression on me at all. I have to be honest. I don't want to sound like super harsh because I remember thinking, oh, this is fine. It's fine. But it doesn't have the juice, the verve of something like, a guy falling in love with a chick because she's a delinquent. Or a guy falling in love with a chick because she thinks she's an alien.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with either of those. Those are natural and good urges to have.
Yeah, but that's so much more exciting than a girl who forgot her glasses. So yes. it got, I think for me, it got lost in the shuffle.
I mean, it's I'm going to be honest, it's a better premise still than I moved to Hokkaido and the girls here are really slutty.
Well, I was going to say, within that shuffle, I do have a memory of one of the other premises of the rom-com I was reading was the girl I like has big tits. And that was the entire premise, was I like a girl and she has massive tits. And I was like,
yes.
How can you...
That is an interesting and unique premise.
How do you get an entire series out of that? What were you thinking?
Well, first of all, hold on. Maybe that speaks to talent if the author can wring an entire series out of that premise.
I guess so. They say the greatest chefs can make a meal out of the worst ingredients, right? Yeah.
Or put a different way, the more simple your meal, the higher quality your ingredients have to be, right?
Well, I mean, Stark did make it out of a box of scraps in a fucking cave.
Heyo! All right, that's one
so
Marvel
let's talk about Synduality Noir, because this does have a tie-in.
Okay, all right. I did not watch this one, so take it away.
Yes. I watched this one. It seems harsh to say this, but this is essentially a downgraded version of Gurren Lagann.
Oh.
Essentially, that's pretty much. The mechs are kind of cool. They're more on the small side. Think like Aliens Power Loader, or more kind of Pat Labor-ish mechs.
Okay.
And they look pretty cool. And they're all decaled up because there's different teams of these mech guys. And because they have to go out and they have to duel as battle mechs, but also like salvage units because the world is post-apocalyptic. There's evil rain. The happening has happened and there's evil rain.
Of course.
And so they have to go out and they have to scrap stuff with their mechs. And a guy, he's kind of, he's aspiring to be a hero, but he hasn't really gotten the last push, He has a much cooler friend who is the mech pilot. Ringing any bells?
Oh boy!
And guess what? Very early on in episode 1, he finds a girl with no memories inside a box and takes her home.
Where do they come up with these ideas?
I know. So we have a very straight up 15 minutes in. We've got a fuck baby. We've got a loser mech wannabe hero guy.
I really don't like it when you use that term.
We've already talked about this.
I
That
know
is
we've
what they
talked
are.
about it. I still don't like it.
You know what? It made me very uncomfortable when the person I was watching with was like, "Hey, remember Chobits?" And I was like, "Yes, I do remember Chobits." Yes.
I wish I did not remember Chobits.
Yeah, hey,
dear listener, try and forget Chobits.
Remember Elfen Lied?
I remember when you tried to show us Elfen Lied.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, when you can only afford like 3 DVDs every couple months, you got to wring out a lot of use.
What is this old guy talking about DVDs? What the fuck is he?
So of course he plugs in the girl to his mech, and the mech becomes super powerful. Of course that happens.
When I find a mysterious girl on the streets, the first thing I do is bring her home and plug her into my Blu-ray player.
Well, the first thing you should think of is if you find some like passed out girl on the street is, I wonder how to turn her into a weapon.
It's the American way.
That is the American way. So the weird thing is, it does have kind of strangely enough, despite how much genericism that sounds, it does have kind of a fun personality to it at its core. I think the art is perfectly serviceable, though there is a lot of CGI.
How are the backgrounds?
The mech battles, the backgrounds are fine. It's the mechs and the mech monsters that they fight are all CGI. But you know what? It doesn't look as bad as it could. It definitely looks better than it threatens to. So I give them some points. It seems like maybe they've made a little bit of progress. And keeping it just between the scenes where it's the mechs like fighting against the other CGI creatures takes a little of the edge off, I have to say. It does take the edge off a little bit.
All right. Well, would you recommend it?
I don't know. I would say maybe it's good enough that I would give it 1 episode just to see if it has the flavor you like. But it's definitely no standout for sure.
Well, that's good enough. You heard him, folks.
Yeah. Okay, what do you got?
Well, all right. Let's go back and talk about the actual thing I want to talk about when I set up the joke at the beginning of this bit. Let's talk about ZOM 100. We both watched that, or at least a little bit of it.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So, ZOM 100, again, speaking to the fears of the modern millennial wage slave, is about a dude, just an absolute shit fuck of a dude, who graduates college, gets a job at a company that does business. They don't even get into it in enough detail to like say what he was doing.
Oh, there are no company in Japan actually produces anything. It's just people filling out paperwork.
Yeah. People would hand him like, all right, I need these reports done by the end of the day. But then they would also talk about like casting department and invoicing the set design people. So maybe they were like some kind of financial division of a film production company.
It's impossible to tell. It's impossible to tell.
Anyway, he starts off, a bright-eyed youth ready to enter the capitalist battlefield of modern-day Japan. And he joins a shit company, and over the course of 3 years gets the ever-living life beaten out of him by a monotonous job and not making enough money and not.
Okay, no, hold on. I will assert. Yes, tangentially, it's those things. The thing that is truly crushing him is his own fucking cowardice.
Well,
this man is a coward.
He is a coward.
He is a weak person. He has a weak soul. And he is crushed by his own inability to take control of his life.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. He has an inability to take responsibility for his actions in any capacity.
Yeah, and his own happiness.
And that is, that is demonstrated and exemplified by his relationship with the office girl. The girl that they hire to hang around the office.
Please, no, God, Jesus Christ!
Who he instantly forms a crush on the moment he sees her.
I want to be harsher on this show than you, so I'm gonna say immediately objectifies and fetishizes.
I'm trying to give an objective recounting of what happened. I do not sympathize with this guy. I already made that clear. He's not a good dude.
I just want to make this show sound as bad as I thought it was when I was watching it.
Yes. Yes, he forms an extremely one-sided and unhealthy crush on this chick, compounded by the fact that she is sleeping with his boss.
She's dirtied by sleeping with the boss.
Yeah.
That's her only function, by the way. She's just a fuck toy for the boss.
Oh, well,
there's
I'm not
one woman.
I'm not going to beat around the bush. She does not make it out of the first episode.
There is only one woman in the entire first episode. She does not get a name as far as I remember, and she is only there.
She does actually, but that's besides.
She does.
Otori.
Okay, well that's my own. That's my own. That's my own misogyny shock.
No, that's you. That's you projecting,
that's
my friend.
Okay, that one's on me, but the rest of it.
Hey, you're no longer one of the good ones.
Oh shit! I lost my status. I shouldn't have done this podcast long enough to expose myself. Over ZOM 100, no less.
I know. So he is just an absolutely broken down shell of a man by the end of his third year at this company, when suddenly the zombie apocalypse breaks out, which it is taking a interesting stance within the zombie fiction world, in that it explicitly references zombies as existing fiction in his world and then also having them exist. I don't know if there's going to be some kind of larger play on that later, because, like, you know how, like, in shows like The Walking Dead or whatever, like, zombies aren't, like, a thing in their media.
No, this is more of a Japanese thing. It does happen a lot in zombie anime, where zombies are already a known quantity. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen quite as often in, like, American productions. They try to play coy with it.
Throws doubt on my initial theory that the zombie apocalypse is just happening inside of his head and he's just going postal on all these people around him.
God, I wish that was what was actually happening. God, I wish.
No, they make it very clear that his real world is experiencing an outbreak of zombies. The apocalypse is upon him, and this overjoys him. It gives him new life, literally in the form of the show's color palette becoming, like, bright and saturated and neon soaked, when he realizes that he doesn't have to go to his job in the morning.
A human genocide is basically the best thing that has ever happened to this guy.
Yes. Which I feel is kind of an underlying indicator of some really deeply messed up stuff in the philosophy of whoever wrote this.
Well, I will say, for the first and last time, I will defend ZOM 100, in that this is clearly the main premise joke. This is the gag that they're constructing the entire rest of the show, is that, oh, a bad thing is happening and this guy thinks it's good. Like, that's very clearly positioned as the central pillar gag of the entire show.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can't dig into it and talk about what that actually means from, like, you know, a political, ideological, and philosophical angle of it, which those dimensions still exist even when you say, haha, I'm joking, bro. Those don't go away.
They do not. And so basically the premise, right, the title comes from the fact that at the end of the first episode, he writes out a diary, which, by the way, he still pays for. Like, he goes into a convenience store and picks up a blank notebook and a pen and leaves cash for the zombie cashier.
Very cute. What a cute. He's so cute.
I know that it's supposed to come off as like, oh, you know, he's still... I'm assuming that to a Japanese cultured person, it's an indicator like, oh, he's still...
That's a weird term.
It is a weird term. Please ignore it. I couldn't think of a better way to say that. To a Japanese person, right? It's an indicator that he is still, like, trying to participate in humanity, I guess.
Or that he's just been so socially conditioned by the previous 3 years of sleepwalking through life that this is just an extension of his inability to, like, grapple with reality.
Yeah. anyway, he gets this notebook and he writes out his bucket list, right? His 100 things to do before he dies in the zombie apocalypse.
Yes, the Morgan Freeman thing.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson was also in that movie.
I guess so.
He is closer to Jack than he is to Morgan.
I guess that's true. Okay, so yeah, this show is disgusting. I hate it.
Well, hold on. Explain a little bit why.
Well, so the difference between a Walking Dead and a Zom 100, right? Mm-hmm. And this is definitely a cultural difference, but it's also a big production difference, and it's a difference in the evolution of the zombie in modern popular culture. And this sounds absurd on its face, but The Walking Dead and Zom 100 are the same show. They are. I realize that sounds weird, but hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
Zom 100 is the explicit surfacing of the subtext of The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead is a grim, dark show whose subtext is, how fucking cool would it be if the zombie apocalypse happened? Because you get to be...
Rick?
No, he's not the cool one. No,
Norman Reedus.
The cool one. Norman, you get to, if the zombie apocalypse happened to you, you could be a Norman Reedus. You'd have a fucking crossbow, and you'd be fucking killing people, and you'd be a badass. It would be so cool. All the girls would love you because, hey, how many options do they really have anyway, right?
Well, people have been making fun of the Office weekend warrior type for decades now.
Yes.
The disaffected office worker who thinks that he's going to be the survivalist badass in the apocalypse because he spends his time stockpiling canned food and taking online judo lessons on the weekend or whatever.
Yes, exactly. And so in The Walking Dead...
By the way, Zom 100's dude, his thing is that he's really good at rugby, and that's why he can survive in the apocalypse.
He seems to be 4 feet tall, so I don't know how the rugby thing played out, but remind me, I think The Walking Dead issue 1 came out, what? Early 2000s?
Yeah, or 2004, maybe a little bit later.
2004?
It's been a long time.
So, and at that point, 2004, at that point, we're really only dealing with, the remake of, the original Dawn of the Dead. Mm-hmm. That remake that is
you mean from visionary filmmaker
cynical.
Zack Snyder?
Yes, and Zack Snyder kind of redefining the zombie fantasy in his own way. In one of the most hilariously homophobic scenes in a modern movie, I'd say, but anyway, the point of that movie is the same thing. That's the thrust of zombie media at the time, and so The Walking Dead comes around and it tries to be a little bit more ironic with the exact same idea. At the time, we weren't at a place in our culture where you could just straight out say, I want the apocalypse to happen so that I can kill people legally. You're not supposed to say that in 2004, even though, as we all know, some people were saying that about certain groups of
they were saying it
people.
then, and they're still saying it now. And this may surprise you to hear, but they were actually saying it before that too. They've been saying it for a long time.
But specifically in relation to the zombie thing, so Walking Dead comes out, and we go through the entire comic process, and by the time it's translated into film by the inimitable Frank Darabont, who I have no problems with, he's great. I love
me some
Frank.
Frankie. I love me some Frankie D.
He's great, but even Frank Darabont cannot escape the actual subtext of The Walking Dead, which is how cool it would be to be one of those guys who becomes a badass in the wake of a tragedy like that. And Zom 100 is the natural endpoint. It is Walking Dead is the mouth, and Zom 100 is the ass. We have reached the end
of zombie fiction.
Please be. I used ass to be polite. Okay, please. Can we keep it?
We're not monetized, so I'm not worried about getting demonetized.
No, for my sake, please. So we've reached the Zom 100 is the end product, and even though it is an attempt at irony. It obviously is an attempt at irony. It cannot escape the actual political reality of what it is and what it exists, the context within it is birthed, and what it exists to do. And what it exists to do is to be essentially the most misanthropic, anti-human propaganda that could possibly exist. And it's, you would say at first, maybe like thinking about our personal politics, you might be like, oh, well, hold on, because obviously that sounds like anti-corporate, like pro-worker at first.
Well,
like this is a person finding
not.
Liberation. But it's not. It's not.
Because
no, it is not.
The message that I got from Zom 100 is, yes, all those people in your life that you hate do suck, and now it's okay for you to go ham on them.
Yeah, it's okay to kill them now.
Yeah.
But in no other context could you change the conditions of your life except for murder and
that's
destruction.
What I'm saying. That's why I thought a much more interesting take would be for the reveal, to be that it's all in his head and he's just gone fucking psycho on these people.
Yeah, that would be a much more interesting thing, but that's not what is going to happen. What's going to happen is he is going to learn how to be a badass, and he's going to meet a chick with big tits, and she's going to fall in love with him because he does something badass, like save her, and then they're going to meet like a grizzled old survivalist, and he's going to teach him how to like be even better, and they're going to like go ride the empty rides at an amusement park and like eat cool food out of like a dumpster somewhere. They're just gonna completely squander any attempt at something interesting in favor of basically the most nihilistic, not even nihilistic, like
fatalistic, solipsistic.
No, thanatological.
Thanatological. Ooh, that's a meaty one. I like that.
Pro-death. Death worship, essentially.
Okay.
In that mass murder is what makes your life better. It is a culling of the herd. And that is the ancillary fantasy of every zombie story.
You know, it just clicked with me. This is Zombieland.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
But like it literally exactly like this is just the beginning of the movie Zombieland from my memory.
You know what? I don't think about Zombieland very often, but it will follow the exact plot of Zombieland.
Yeah.
You're correct.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And I will, that also may remind me, that office chick that he had the crush on at the beginning, she totally gets turned into a zombie because she was sleeping with her boss. And he's just like, well, sorry about that, but I'm over you now. Bye.
Yeah. Oh, and this is just one of those little things. This is something that pops up in a lot. So I'm not saying this is specific to Zom 100, but it is very pointed that they do this. Not only do they strip her of her humanity, but in death, they also strip her of any dignity. She is naked when he destroys her body.
Yeah.
Gleefully, by the way, and he views his destruction of her naked body as his freedom. His escape into freedom is the destruction of a naked woman, which, you can say, hey, you're reading too much into it, but we all have reads of media. That's the whole point of talking about media, is we all read these things. That's what happens. That's the symbological mechanism that is going on in Zom 100. It's like insanely fucking gross.
Jesus Christ.
Too bad the show looks amazing. It's incredibly
animated.
I know.
I was waiting to
it looks
get
so
into
fucking
that
good.
Because it looks really
great.
fucking good. They do this thing with the blood splatter where everything is in these bright saturated like primary
It's
colors.
like paintballs. Yeah, they do paintball blood splatter. It looks fantastic. The movement is so fluid. There are so many frames in this first episode. The way they move the camera around is brilliant. There's lots of interesting directorial choices when it comes to like cutting. It's a really, really handsome show. That sucks. That sucks so bad.
It sucks so bad. Who is I know that I recognize the animation director's name from somewhere else. Let me see here.
I don't know.
Oh, Kazuki Kawagoe. Comey Can't Communicate is the big name on his list that I recognize it from, but there's a lot of stuff on here. Actually, can I steal the next slot, because Zom 100 segues into another show that I watched that's kind of like the polar opposite in tone while being more or less about the same thing. Right. I watched the Masterful House Cat is Depressed Again, which is an absolute dogshit title. I hate
Very
that.
bad.
But the premise is more or less the same basic seed as Zom 100.
Jesus Christ.
Where you have this woman in her early 20s that's working for this faceless company. She's getting beat down daily by the monotony of her job, and her escape fantasy, instead of being a zombie apocalypse where rules no longer, like the rules of society, no longer apply. Like her big answer to the existential crisis of her life is to adopt a talking house cat that does all of her cooking and cleaning for her.
These are the two genders.
Zombie apocalypse prepper and
or
crazy,
talking cat.
talking house cat lady. Talking cat lady.
Doesn't sound healthy, but healthier for sure.
If given a choice between the two scenarios, I'm gonna pick the giant animal that does all of my housework for me.
Yeah, that does sound better to me too, to be honest.
I just think it's a very... I watched it back-to-back with the first episode of Zom 100, and it just felt like a very endearing concept coming off of that.
Sure.
Obviously, neither is good. Neither is really... addressing the core issue of why these characters feel so fucking hopeless and lost in their lives.
Yeah, but hey, maybe they get to it.
I'm assuming they do.
We'll check back in.
I will. It's very funny. It has some great writing. A lot of unexpected jokes or humor that I wasn't expecting to see in there.
Okay, give me one joke, and then we'll move on.
Well, the big setup is that throughout the first episode, she's constantly trying to, hide the fact that she's living with this giant person-sized cat.
Yeah.
Who can read and write and do chores for her.
Right, because the government is going to kidnap it like E.T.
Or something like that. And then the punchline at the end of the episode is that, actually all of her neighbors know the cat already because he hangs out with them when she's at work.
Okay, that's a good joke. I like that.
That's pretty funny.
That's funny. I like that.
So I would highly recommend checking that out. You should check it out, dear listener, and Remy as well.
Okay, so let's see. We got... here's an interesting one. Undead Murder Farce. And this was in the manga called Undead Girl Murder Farce, but I guess the girl gave a little too much away.
I suppose it paints more of a picture for sure.
Yeah, I don't know why they pulled it out, but it's definitely worse. Now, what's interesting about Undead Murder Farce is that, and this is a bit of a trend I've noticed with this season, is the manga starts with a murder in a vampire family. The vampire mom is found murdered.
Okay, so vampires can have children in the rules of this universe.
Yes, vampires can have children. That we have a vampire man who is married to a vampire woman. He has 3 vampire children of various ages. And a human butler.
Hold on. If they can have kids with each other, then what about the whole biting people to turn them into vampires thing?
Yeah, that's part of it. Is the head vampire, our vampire man, whose wife has been killed. He has long since sworn off drinking blood. He hasn't even drank blood in 20 years.
Okay.
To prove to humanity that he's not a threat. He wants to enter society, right? And that's the whole thing. And this murder is really kicking up a lot of dust. He's not happy about it. I mean, even on top of his wife being murdered, he's not happy about the press coverage and whatnot.
Yeah, no, that's generally, that would have me pretty down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the whole situation sucks wall to wall. It's not good. So a trio of eccentric detectives, or one detective and her servants, show up to solve the murder. And the big twist is that the detective is a girl's head that is kept in a bird cage by her underling. She's immortal. She's an immortal head. She solves mysteries. That's the setup.
Okay.
There's a bunch of other stuff, but that's it. It's a fantasy world where all kinds of universal monsters roam. It's all mishmashed together. Vampires, werewolves, all this shit.
Okay, so when you say universal monsters, you mean the universal monsters, not like universally applicable monsters.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. There's a widespread. Let's leave it at that. What's interesting about the anime, and I don't know, maybe interesting is not the right word, but that's a great setup in the manga because it introduces us to the world first to give us a boundary of strangeness, right? And then it immediately breaks that boundary with something even stranger, and that's a good gag. That's a really good gag. Mm-hmm. They also do this whole thing where there's a drape over the cage, so people can't tell where the voice is coming from, and they think one of the other people is like doing a ventriloquist act. It's a whole thing. But in the first episode of the anime, they decide to go like flashback way before that event and explain all of this stuff. Just lay out the plot, have the characters literally look each other in the eyes and talk about the plot to each other so that the audience doesn't get lost. And
Wait,
that's really cowardly.
You can't just have characters look at each other and state their motivations? That makes me angry.
It makes me angry because it treats me like a fucking idiot. Like, if I had just seen these, like, vampire detective murder mystery episode, I'd be like, that's ridiculous. A head can't talk. It's like, shut the fuck up. I know we're in an anime. I get it, okay?
Hey, excuse me, sir, Mr. Jackson. Apes actually can't grow that large, nor can they climb buildings like that.
Well, hey, he did make King Kong smaller in that movie he made. So maybe somebody did do that. It treats me like a baby, like a big dumb baby. Like, you need to have all of this explained to you or you're not going to know what's happening. And it's a bad move, honestly, because it makes the first episode, the episode that's supposed to sell you on the entire premise, really boring. Not a good move at all. Once you move past that to episode 2, where they actually get into where the manga starts, it's fine. We're off to the races. We're doing the detective shit. It's great. Well, it's not great. I have my own problems with the detective side of it, but for the most part, those are my own squabbles with anime detectives in general. Mm-hmm. I think it's fine. The animation is pretty good for what it is. I just think, like, if you are interested in that premise of, like, monsters and humans trying to coexist in a world where a bunch of detective stories happen, just skip the first episode. I promise you will have a better time. So that's Undead Girl Murder Farce, now called Undead Murder Farce. Let's see. Did you watch any of these other ones, or is this all me?
No, that's all you.
Okay, let's talk about the good ones then. Helck has premiered. Helck, I have talked about this quite a lot already. I guess I probably shouldn't go all the way through it again. Helck has a similar problem to Undead Murder Farce, wherein episode 1 doesn't trust the audience very much, and I don't like that. I don't like when they treat me like a little baby. I'm not a little baby. I'm a grown-ass man, goddammit.
Okay, but have you considered that, like, there's a lot of people out there that do need and, in fact, want to be treated like a little baby?
If people like that exist, which I very much doubt they do, they should stop watching anime, because they're ruining it for the rest of us. The whole point of Helck is the manga has an incredible turn where it starts off as a gag manga, and it seems very simple. The entire premise is, the legendary hero is trying to become the demon lord through a series of these, like, fun battles that they're having to replace the previous demon lord. That's like a fun setup. It's a fun gag setup. But it slowly, a deeper and weirder and darker story emerges as you continue in the manga. And I understand why they did it, but they move the plot line up into the first episode so that these things are now occurring concurrently. Because, again, they think you're a big dumb baby and you'll bounce out of the show. And in Helck's case, I kind of get it a little bit more, because if people watch episode 1 and they think it's just a gag anime, maybe they'll bounce out. I don't know. But it's not a choice that I particularly like, but it's fine. Helck looks good. It's got good animation. The gags are still pretty funny. I really like the story in general, so I don't mind that they're leaking it in a little bit early. Whatever. I think Helck is cool.
All right.
Dark Gathering. Dark Gathering. For some reason, they just put the first 3 episodes onto Shudder. Very strange choice. Dark Gathering is a Gap, as I mentioned before, right? Gap moe. Remember?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That totally common term that I definitely remember you using.
Well, it's more common than you think. Dark Gathering is Gap moe. The whole idea being that it is a show that has a very kind of cutesy anime aesthetic about a girl who is obsessed with ghost hunting and a boy who is cursed. And he's in college and he's her tutor. But instead of tutoring, she's constantly trying to drag him into ghost hunting. And when we get to the ghost hunting, things become incredibly dark and weird and gross, and like the ghost hunting is like legitimately disturbing. And so that's the Gap moe, right? You get it.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah. Which is pulled off, I think, pretty well. I think there's a balancing act here that is very, very difficult, and that if you go, one or the other too much, you ruin the entire premise of the show. Personally, I wouldn't mind if they went too much in the horror side. In fact, I think maybe there might be leaning a little to the other side. It might be cutesy too much. We'll see how it goes along, because I see it getting a little darker. I'm sticking with it because I think I like that kind of thing. I hope it gets grosser. Gene of AI. Gene of AI? Still never figured it out.
I think it's Gene of AI.
I think it's probably Gene of AI, because this is about artificial intelligence, androids. This is, the first episode's kind of fun. This basically establishes itself as Blackjack in the Ghost in the Shell world, essentially. He's a Blackjack doctor, but for like synthetic humans.
Okay.
And he's wrestling. He has his own personal plot that's going on in the background here. But
does anyone ever derisively or jokingly refer to him as a mechanic?
Not in the first episode. In fact, I think most of them are really begging him for his help, so they probably don't want to make fun of him, because he is, like Blackjack, basically back alley surgeon. Not accredited, this man.
Which are cool. Check out your local back alley surgeon. They do things a lot cheaper.
Hell yeah, they'll take a bullet out, no questions asked. And he will illegally back up your wife's data, no questions asked. He won't like it, but he'll do it.
How ethical of him.
Yes, well, it's interesting because the first episode established that this show is going to be a little bit more of an episodic, almost anthological style story about the philosophy and morality of a sort of like post-wet work human civilization. There's a lot of wrestling with like, what is a person, what is a soul, what are memories, that kind of thing.
Wow, it took them this long to catch up with Blade Runner?
Well, yes, basically. I mean, we've been grappling with this shit forever, and this is just another iteration of that story, but I think it's good because...
Neuromancer came out in 1979?
Yes. Whatever. Anyway, this is a gentler, even though it has its own interesting plot going on. There's something about like he made a copy of his mom and the copy ran off or something like that. I'm not really sure. But the foregrounding is
the copy ran off with the copier.
The foregrounding is the kind of more grounded family stories, and I find those things really interesting. The stakes are lower. They're more about like people's emotional needs, which is a good side of this stuff, because a lot of times when we talk about like robots and AI and these science fiction concepts, they're always shackled to some kind of like fucking action concept, which this show doesn't have and frankly doesn't need if the episode 1 is something to go off of. It's interesting. It's interesting. I like what they're doing with it. Could have been animated a little bit more. I could have done with more animation, but I don't think it looks bad.
How are the backgrounds?
Mostly fine. He does that thing where he drives a classic car because he's like, I'm against the future, which I find annoying in everything that it pops up in. It happens way too often. It's way played out. Like, stop doing that. Also, the car he chooses is like kind of like a 60s, 70s like BMW body, kind of the blockier ones. You see it in a lot of old British movies. Really ugly car. I don't like it. He chose bad.
Oh, man, we could do a whole episode on our favorite anime cars. That's like a whole thing.
I'd love to. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, fucking Lupin's little Pugo wins every time.
I mean, that was my number one.
Yeah, it's a good one, man.
I mean, that fucking opening scene of Castle of Cagliostro. That is
Cagliostro.
Cagliostro.
That shit rules.
Peak fucking animation.
Yes. Okay, final one. This is a downer, but whatever. We'll end it there.
I love ending on a downer.
Ayaka is basically the most generic thing we watched this season so far. Man, it's there's a family of exorcists. There's lineage powers, blood lineage powers. Somebody collects a high school boy, to go back to his family home to like fight ghosts or whatever. He kind of doesn't want to do it, but a weird guy awakens his powers, and he's like, I'm afraid of my powers. And so he's like, take control of them. That'll make you less afraid. And he's like, okay, I will do that. And then they fight a ghost together, and then they live in a hot landlady's house, and he has kind of a crush on the hot landlady, but she also maybe has powers. Who knows? It's looks pretty generic. The monsters look generic. The powers look generic. He looks generic. Everything about this show is as generic as possible, so I'm sure it's going to be very popular.
All right, love it. You know, I really wish that someone would do, that, but his life gets objectively worse after getting powers. I know it's been done out there. I'm struggling to think of the exact title, but that is such a much more interesting take than that.
You basically are begging these guys to like give me one twist. Like one. And hey, you know what? To be fair, I only watched the first episode. Maybe episode 2 introduces like a bunch of complications. Who knows? But it doesn't seem like we're going in that direction. Ayaka, boy. I don't know, man. I think I'm not sure I can even watch episode 2.
I've already forgotten
boring.
the plot, and you just described it to me.
Yeah. Ayaka also, and there's like Ayakashi Triangle came out last season or the season before too, and so we're already getting, there's too many Ayaka things like floating around right now anyway, so I'm constantly like forgetting which one's which. We need to figure that shit out. I bet Ayaka means something really generic too, right? Like it probably means powers or something, right?
I don't speak Japanese.
Okay, by the next episode, one of us will have learned Japanese so we can finally put this shit to rest.
Oh, is this where we get to plug our Duolingo commercial?
Yeah, we finally nailed a sponsorship. It's Duolingo. They will revoke it if we don't learn Japanese within 1 week.
Yeah.
Really, I'm sweating my ass off, and not just because of the heat this time. We
did spend all of the advance money already.
Yeah, I really can't give that back. So I guess we'll. What do you want to do? You wanna head off and crack the books open again? I think that was a lot of anime. We talked about lots of anime. That was the whole season.
That was some good anime. That was a preview of the summer season.
3 weeks in.
Not necessarily what you should be watching, but what we have watched.
Yeah, there's some other stuff. To be honest, there was a couple other things I think I might check out. I'm not sure though.
Well, we talked about it last episode, but check out Jujutsu Kaisen. First season's out, second season's.
Yeah, that really needs the publicity. That one.
You know what? I'm not gonna take that from you. I will plug a super popular show if I want to.
Look, it looks good. This season looks good. I hope they get back to our main boy. Pink-haired Itadori at some point.
Never. We are never going back to Itadori's story.
It would be fun if we got along with the story at some point, but you know what? The show looks great. It doesn't matter what they're doing. The animation's fine. It looks great. I'll just watch that.
I will slip in real quick. Check out Honorable Farmer Arakawa. There are these fun little.
That can't be the name of it.
That's the name of the show.
Honorable Farmer.
Yep.
Oh no. Oh no.
There are these cute little info dump videos made by the author of Full Metal Alchemist. She grew up on a dairy farm, and she makes these cute little cartoons about Japanese food supply chain, and I find them endlessly interesting. Check it out.
Okay, you snuck one in there. I think by next time I might have watched, maybe Agate was the other one I had my eye on. That's a Chinese one. I don't think we've talked about any Chinese anime so far, right?
No, we haven't.
Yeah, so I'm gonna check in. Maybe let's see what's happening on the other side of the pond, right?
Yeah, that's a whole untapped market.
That's a whole new world.
Yeah, no one's paying attention to that except for us. Oh Jesus,
we're the only ones that have ever done it.
Okay, we're digging a hole here.
Okay, all right. Pick one of those shows and watch it, and then you can talk to us, your best friends, all about the new anime you're watching this season. I would
love to hear it. Please tell me about the anime.
Yes.
Please, someone besides Remy talk to me about anime.
We are the only ones with objectively correct opinions, as I stated. So that may or may not go good for you. I'm just saying.
Okay.
In the meantime...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
We'll be back next week with objectively correct opinions on Anime Death Spiral.
Bye.
Bye. There is a very specific thing that is anime. I think anime has a spirit, and that spirit is evil.